Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business.
Hey, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm very excited to have Barc Holmes joining us. Barc, welcome.
Hey, Michael. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, great to have you on. So, Barc, for those who aren't familiar with your work and don't know what you do, just take a moment and share with us what you do.
Sure. I get called in most of the time to help set up digital PMOs for either brand new organizations or organizations within organizations.
Tell me more about that. So what does that look like?
I've been a project manager my whole life, ultimately ended up as a VP of production for Disney Parks and Resorts online. So we did all of the websites, mobile apps for Disneyland, Disney World, cruise lines, and other things. And we went from, I think we were about 220 people when I started there, and 7 years later, we were 780, I think. And the number of requests for projects coming in was just growing massively. And so we went through a transformation in how we delivered and just changed the whole process and approach to digital delivery. And I got such a kick out of it, loved doing it, and I decided to go off on my own. And then just one thing led to another. People that I'd worked with either at Disney or elsewhere called me to help set up the same kind of delivery process in their organizations. Either theirs were faltering or they had a brand new budget and they wanted to start a new organization. They wanted to start from scratch. And so I just went from kind of company to company, helping set these things up. But it wasn't just delivery. I think one of my specialties is helping the executives transform all of the operational pieces from not just delivering quality code. Most of the companies I'm working with are digital, but also helping change how they do legal. I'm an ex-attorney, how they set up contracts, masters, and statements to work in a more concise, innovative way. And then working with procurement to change their approaches, HR, how they hire people, finance, how they capture CapEx and OpEx in digital organizations, which is a bigger and bigger thing all the time. So even though I come in as a delivery consultant and expert, 9 times out of 10, I end up spending most of my time on those other operational areas.
Right. You mentioned Disney, and Barc, I remember when you first reached out before we started working together, I was looking at like where you'd been, the types of companies that you had experience with, and it's a very solid list. So you mentioned Disney, but take us through your career path and who you worked with before you started your own consulting business.
I've been consulting forever, unfortunately. And with a lot of car companies, I live in LA, and so I ended up doing a lot of work for Honda, Nissan, Infiniti, Toyota, and let's see who else. I did a good amount of hospitality work for Marriott and a bunch of the other big companies. And then I got recruited by Disney to help set up the production there. We were what's called, people don't do it a lot anymore, but there's a waterfall approach to delivering software that's very stage gate. And we had a very kind of fixed priced, fixed time approach, doing what they used to call bottom-up estimates, very detailed estimates of delivering work. And we're very, very successful at it. Not many companies are. And so we took that approach. I took that approach into Disney. And, most car companies have to deliver that way. So that's the way we did it. But then it all changed in, somewhere around year 2000, 2001. And it became much more, they use the term Agile or lean all the time, but they're much smaller increments of delivering value directly to the customers. And it really changes the whole operational, the whole value stream of how you deliver work, whether it's software or hardware or firmware, that kind of thing. So then once I did, and I'll span past Disney, but again, that was working with, almost 20 different companies, including Youth and ESPN Zone and all the different parks and types of entertainment companies that they have. Then it was on to big tech companies like Intuit. I was called down there to help with their marketing group to really transform their delivery process. Their technology group was already very advanced. And then I went on to Citrix up in Santa Barbara, and then Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines down in Miami, Wyndham Resorts, and a bunch of others. They're all pretty big brands that are feeling the tug of digital. And so they're looking for help on how they can deliver faster. Usually more innovation, more connection with their customers, so they're not delivering these things after 6 months that people don't want.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of us have had that experience in one form or another and can relate. So I want to dig more into your business, but you now have a 7-figure consulting business. How long did it take you to reach that level of growth in your consulting business?
A lot shorter than I expected. I'll tell you the truth. When I left Disney, I suddenly realized a day later I had no idea how to sell, and I still don't. And I realized I still had bills to pay regardless, and I wasn't sure about how to go about it. I made a good living as an employee at Disney. They've got a great compensation program, and suddenly to have that wash away was a shock. But the first year, I was able to make that up in consulting, and I'm sure we'll get into it. That was merely by a relationship that I had at Intuit, and took that and was able to get back to where I was the previous year. And then every year since then, that's 5 years ago, I have at least doubled my gross income every year. And so how did it happen? A lot of it is luck. A lot of it is relationships, but I like to tell myself it's because I'm bringing expertise.
So when you look back at the steps you've taken to grow your consulting business, is there anything that you've identified that really helped you more than anything else? Anything that you think, if I did that sooner, I would have seen even better or faster results?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me has really been developing a deep expertise. They always call it the T-shaped consultant. I have a deep expertise in one very narrow area of an approach to delivery that includes all the tools and the processes of doing that. And so it's a framework that almost everything else that I do hangs off of. And because people know me for that, they also bring me in for related things at the top of the T, as I talked about at the beginning, whether it's finance or legal or HR, procurement. Those are all things that are burning in their world, but they say, hey, I know you've got a way of delivering. Maybe you can help me with this thing in procurement as well. I think if I would have gone in earlier, I would have established that knowledge set and made sure people understood how to apply it earlier. Shorter way of saying that is I was a little too much of a generalist in the beginning.
Yep. So just to clarify for everyone, because I think this is a really important lesson and share from you, is that your expertise, your real focus on the area where you can provide the greatest value to people is where you lead with. That's what your messaging is about. That's kind of where you start the conversation with a prospective buyer or in a relationship. And once you've entered into that relationship and you're working with that client, you're in an engagement, then they start to learn a lot more about how you can help them in other ways. And that then produces significantly more revenue and work for you with that organization. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right on.
Did you ever feel, Barc, that in the early days, I know you said that you were a generalist and you switched to a specialist, but as you were making that transition, because you've shared how it's been a very successful and important one for you, did you ever have concern around, well, am I going to leave opportunity on the table if I narrow too much?
I did before I did it. I don't anymore.
Right, yeah.
Because as you and I have talked before, and probably not a great subject for this of giving advice to people on how to sell their services and how to present themselves, because I frankly never have. All of my work has come from people I work with recommending me to other people without me asking them to do so. They say, oh my God, this guy does this thing. It's really helped us do X, Y, and Z and bring these kind of returns. And then they call me up and they say, hey, I don't have exactly the same problem that the other guy had, but here's one that may be related. And I'll talk with them and talk about how my expertise can apply to that secondary issue that they're having.
Mm-hmm. I love how humble you are, Barc. But I think the reality is there's probably more going on here that maybe kind of first meets the eye. You aren't doing tons of marketing, right? You don't consider yourself to be a salesperson or to put much effort into sales, right? Business is coming your way. But clearly you're doing something that is working for you. And what it sounds like to me, one of the things that you're really doing is ensuring that you deliver tremendous value for your clients, right? They're seeing great results, which is then leading them to talk more about you, which is bringing you more work. So what keeps you on top of your game? How do you provide such great results for your clients?
I'll take that in two ways. One, I would say it's not only delivering good results, and I don't want to lie, we fail periodically. The project at Royal Caribbean, we started as three of us. My friend Jay Schneider, who I worked with at Disney, his secretary, and me on one floor down in Miami. And now we're 1,000 people with a budget of about $200 million and just delivering scads of value and doing super, super innovative things for people that want a different experience on their cruise vacation. But in that process, we make a lot of mistakes. That's what I bring, is how to contain those mistakes in a short period of time. But when people hear about, wow, that's an opportunity for me to get out and try new things very quickly and see if they work, they get excited about that. But the second part I would add to that is, though I don't do any marketing, I do keep lots of relationships, and I don't want to think that I'm totally cut off from the world. I just before this call had multiple texts and calls and emails from friends saying, hey, I'm in town. Let's go out for lunch and just chat about things and let's kick some ideas around. It's that kind of a relationship world that we are all in as consultants that I curry every day. And I never, ever ask for a recommendation or a reference or a job. What I do is always say, hey, have you thought about this? Or I'll send them articles or send them new ideas. 9 times out of 10, if I write a blog article, I will do a very short draft of it and send it to key clients and say, hey, here's an idea that I have. Do you think this is right? Do you think this is true? Will this apply to you? And I'll be honest with you, 9 times out of 10, they'll say, nope, I disagree with that, or that's too forward thinking for me. We'll never get that through our finance team or something like that. But that's great, right? So they're my kind of editorial board and we're in this together. So there's that one piece for me that I wouldn't call it marketing. It's called building honest relationships. And then there's the other part of just actually delivering detailed expertise to these folks that they appreciate. That's probably a longer answer than you wanted.
No, that's a great answer, because the way I look at that is that your marketing is relationships, right? Yeah. While some people invest a lot of time into, let's say, creating content or figuring out how to do advertising or speaking or going to a lot of trade shows, like whatever it is that they're doing to get clients and to build their business and to build their pipeline, you found an approach that works really well for you, which is really to become a master of not only building and nurturing, but strengthening relationships. And that takes some of your time, right? You don't just sit back, do nothing, and business lands in your lap. I feel like that maybe at times, but you are working on relationships. You value relationships. You're providing value to people beyond even meeting. As you said, you'll send them an article that you found or something that would be valuable for them, or you'll share something that you're working on with them. That's all building relationships. You stay top of mind, you provide value, and you continue to stay on their radar. And I think that's just a great opportunity for people to recognize and to see the value of that, because certainly, firsthand, you've done very well with that approach.
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early-stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early-stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
How do you...
Can I throw one little
Please do. Yeah.
In the event that any of my clients ever hear this conversation, in no way is what I do marketing. I could understand why you typify it as that. But, and by the way, in my business, particularly in digital, we always say marketing doesn't really exist anymore and advertising doesn't really exist. In digital, whether you have a mobile app or a wearable or in-room automation or sometimes even a website, the difference between marketing and advertising and experience are all munged together. You're providing information and value.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want that value, you continue to have a relationship with that brand or those people. And it's the same thing when I talk to these people. They're my friends more than they're my clients. They're people I want to succeed. If they ever thought that what I'm doing, and I'm sure periodically they do when I send them an article or call them up with an idea, they think, oh, he's marketing me. Do that once or twice and they won't pick up the phone. I honestly reveal myself and am vulnerable to making mistakes, but hopefully giving them value while trying, then they'll stay my friends. And that to me is way more important. Hopefully that's useful.
It definitely is. We've been having a lot of discussions internally about some of those topics and with clients. And I think you're right on the mark there in terms of open to being vulnerable and really sharing at the highest level, right? We refer to it as marketing as the act of working on our business. At the end of the day, right? It is about creating these relationships and providing value to people and doing it from a place where you don't necessarily expect anything back. These days, a lot of people have very short-term thinking. They expect to do something and see a result, right? But Barc, I know you're a very big believer in this. We're very big believers in playing the longer-term game and really wanting to do whatever we can to make an impact, to provide value, even if it doesn't provide something back right away. So I think that's a really insightful share, and I appreciate you providing that. How do you typically structure your engagements? Because you've mentioned that some clients you work with right now very, very closely, but just to give people a sense when they hear where you're at in terms of your business and the development, how are you structuring your projects? Are they daily rates? Are they based on value or ROI? Or are you using retainers? What kind of structure are you typically using with clients?
All of the above.
Okay.
And of course, it always depends on their budgets, on their needs, on what kind of burning platform they're standing on at the moment. Frankly, when I started right after Disney, most of my work was a fixed price deliverable, umpty-ump thousands for weeks, and this is what I'm going to deliver at the end. And I try to do that as much as I can so I can schedule my own hours. But the last few clients have really wanted me there on the ground as much as possible, open to taking on whatever challenges or needs, from facilitating an offsite to working with legal and drafting new masters and SOWs. Many of the times, not knowing what that would take to do those, they would just bring me on per hour. So I would say recently, in the past couple of years, I've moved over to more hourly rates than I have in the past. I don't really like that as much because I have to really keep track of my hours, and I can't stand that. I'd much rather keep track of the value that I'm delivering.
Sure.
We might have chatted about this in the past. I've gotten into the lucky position that they turn to me frequently to staff positions. And so then I'll either bring in subs who I am directly responsible for, who will be part of my company, or I will just staff legions of scrum masters, project managers, product owners, artists, designers for them, basically because they trust me to interview really well, put them through lots of tests to make sure they're the right people for it, and then they pay me for that. So my work is not only through my hourly and fixed price contracts, but through my staffing agency.
Got it. So that kind of leads me to my next question around your operations. What does your company look like in terms of the team, or what kind of resources do you find are necessary to run your business in a very smooth fashion?
I'll go from the top. Of course, it's me doing most of the relationships with my friends who need the help. I have an office manager who takes care of all of my invoicing and billing, and also sets up initial interviews if they need additional resources. I've got another person that helps manage the staffing organization. And then, of course, I've got the usual accountant, attorney, financial advisor, and a banker who helps with loans, because a lot of these companies don't pay for 90 days, so we have to deal with that. And then as far as people on the ground, I've got about a dozen people on the ground at different clients who are doing mostly project management work, but there's a number of designers, product people, and and a finance person. Actually, I've got 3 finance people and one of our clients.
Love it. Good stuff. Barc, You've built your business clearly to a very nice level of success. Many consultants experience challenges along the way. You've painted a pretty rosy picture to this point, but I'm sure that you've encountered some challenges along the way as well. What stands out for you as maybe one of the bigger challenges that you faced as you've been growing your consulting business over the last several years?
I think my biggest problem is I suck as a sales guy. I don't do anything. I keep saying, I gotta write a book. I gotta work with Michael and figure out how to get my CRM together or speak in public or do all the things that a guy like me should be doing. But I end up working so much I never do any of that. So that's bad because at any moment it could all stop and I'm going to be sitting there in my pajamas going, what the hell? But that hasn't happened yet. It could, certainly. And so I've got my fingers crossed. That's certainly not a great strategy. I know I have to do some of those things. And those are scary to me. This scary, I have had some downtimes, a couple months here and there over the years in between gigs that I find my biggest problem is my own inner vibe, I guess. I get down and I get worried and I start feeling like it's all crumbling down and that I'm not worthy and all the things that I'm sure every consultant listening to this will recognize. You feel like, oh my God, why don't I just dial up LinkedIn and get a salary position? And then I wake up the next morning and keep my fingers crossed once again. But I've been very lucky to come out of those troughs and be able to deliver. But when I look back on it, and again, I don't mean to put too positive a spin on this, my biggest thing is during those downtimes is to train. There's a lot happening in my industry. I mean, every day, just new stuff is coming out. So I go to a lot of conferences, not only about software, but about innovation and the future and philosophy and management, all the kind of things I never know when that little nugget is going to come. And so while I'm worrying about the next contract or the next call to come, the best thing I can do is to train and to learn more to get my mind off of it.
Do you ever meet people at these events or trainings that you end up creating friendships with that lead to opportunities?
That's a good question. I've never gotten work directly from meeting people at any of these conferences. But two things always happen, of course, that I get back like that South by Southwest in March, which is my yearly trek among many.
Right.
And I just get so excited about what's happening in our world, all the positive things. Elon Musk you're standing next to that guy. It's hard not to get a contact high. All the things that are happening, it's hard not to take that same level of excitement and ideas into your next client. So those things do transfer and then they get me more work. What I also find is I run into old clients at a lot of these things. Mm-hmm. And I say, hey, how are you? And we have lunch and we just reconnect. And that they don't always get me more work, though sometimes they do. But then they're having lunch with somebody else and the guy goes, oh man, I really need somebody to help me set up a delivery organization. He goes, hey, I just had lunch with Barc Holmes. You should talk to him. And that's how it happens, right? Every gig I've had happens exactly like that. They just happen to find out either from me when we were standing in the street in Austin, or they happened to read one of my blog posts and they said, oh, you know what? I think Barc's available. You should call him. And so it maybe second or third connection will get me there.
There we go. Yeah, it's interesting how those things work. And I think especially the one point that you made about just training yourself, right? It's if you want to stay at the top of your game in any aspect of business and life, right? You got to work on it and work on it consistently and find ways to improve so that you can continue to deliver greater value for clients, right? Increase your confidence as well and maintain that. I find it interesting how so many people think that their clients need to be at the cutting edge or that their clients need to implement some new strategy or take information and apply it in some way, yet the consultants themselves don't do that for them or for their business.
Yeah.
So it's really great to see that you are doing that, right?
Because yeah, exactly.
All of us needed to make sure that we're taking our own medicine to stay sane.
I figure I'm an idiot. I just go and have me teach me some basic thing that I can rely on my next client. And I'm always greatly, greatly rewarded. Yesterday I was watching a video talk by Brian Eno. If you guys don't know who Brian Eno is, stop this They can go listen to him right now. He used to be a keyboard player in a band called Roxy Music, but he's now a very well-known speaker and artist and forward thinker. And he's got a theory about what he says genius are people like Da Vinci or Picasso that are well-known for their great ideas or their vision of the future. But his point of view, and it's pretty well researched and true, that always these folks come from a scene. He calls it scenius. He comes from an environment of other people who were already working on the same kinds of ideas and visions. And it just happens that this one genius is the person who's able to capture that concept and get it out to the right people so they understand it. But in all cases, that genius has come from a group of people. So I go out of my way to be in the right group of people and hopefully be certainly not the genius, but at least the mouthpiece for the ideas they're already talking about to my clients. So that's part of my job, right, is to be there and to start to hear these new ideas or disagreements or tools or whatever it is so I can start to apply those for my clients.
Yeah. And for everyone listening, you don't need to search for that right now. Just head to the show notes. We'll have a link there for you so that you can click it and hopefully get you there a lot faster.
Sure.
Barc, I really appreciate you coming on here and just telling us a little bit of your story, sharing it with us. I've been just so thrilled with the success that you continue to have in your business and a real honor and pleasure to see that. What's the best way for people to learn more about your work and to connect with you?
Well, you can go to my website, barcholmes.com. And as far as I know, all of the email links and everything else still work on that. Or you can email me. My consulting company is Coral Mountain Consulting. So you can email me at barc.holmes@coralmountainconsulting.com. Or use my personal email as well, barcholmes, no dot, at yahoo.com. I'd be happy to chat with you.
Well, there we go. Not all of our guests are giving their personal emails on the show, so this may be a first. And if you want to remove that, Barc, you better tell me right after we're finished recording.
Oh, I'm fine.
Okay, so it will end up then on the call here. And everyone, thanks for tuning in. Just head over to consultingsuccess.com. You can search for Barc, B-A-R-C, and you can find this podcast. We'll have a full transcript, all the show notes, links for you to everything that's been mentioned here. And again, Barc, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Great to catch up with you again.
You too.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.